So what to do to create a healthy, deep, loving, and meaningful relationships where you're not only having an emotional spikes, but where you feel joy, love, happiness, where you grow together, where you develop together, where you are like a soulmates. Welcome to the Happy on the Inside podcast, the podcast where you will learn the secrets of living a happy and fulfilled life from people who live that way every day. I'm your host, Anna Ditchburn, and let's get started. What is the secret of deep, meaningful, loving, and healthy relationships? I want you to listen carefully. The deep, meaningful, loving, and healthy relationships always start with a deep, loving, meaningful, and healthy relationship with yourself. I haven't seen any woman who would be unhappy with herself and who would constantly complain about the past, about her body, about her family, who is very hard to please, who constantly is seeking external validation, would have a happy and healthy, meaningful and deep relationship with her partner. And opposite, I haven't seen any woman who would have a healthy relationships with herself, towards herself, would stay in a toxic or unhealthy relationships for a long time. And I had to learn this on a hard way. When I was 31, I found myself being in a toxic relationships. I felt really lonely, but I didn't know what to do. I was in a foreign country in Australia. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any family. I was dependent on my ex-husband. And the thought of leaving these relationships was just unbelievably scary. And I just thought, maybe if I just dress better, maybe if I just get skinnier, maybe if I just get more beautiful, or maybe if I just behave myself a bit better, he would love me. But that wasn't the case. I didn't love myself. I didn't accept myself. I wasn't happy with myself. So how anyone can be happy with you if you are not happy with yourself? And I was feeling really depressed and anxious. I didn't want to leave those relationships because I was so scared what other people will think of me. I was feeling if I leave, I would be a failure. But one day, the pain of staying in the relationships became much bigger than the fear of unknown. And honestly, I was thinking to end my life. And when I was sitting on the couch holding tablets just to swallow and just to end this struggle, my mom called me just out of the blue. And I told her, Mom, if you won't hear from me, please know I love you so much. But honestly, I cannot live like this anymore. And she said, Anna, before you do anything to yourself, I want you to write a list of your ideal men in explicit detail. What is it that you want? What kind of relationships you want with this man? How do you want to feel yourself being in the relationships of your dreams? And my first response was, honestly, I didn't believe. I thought all men are the same. All the relationships are the same. I honestly thought if I exit these relationships, I will probably end up in a similar situation, if not worse, because at least I knew what to expect in these relationships. And the fear of unknown was very, very strong. And I was 31 and I wasn't getting any younger. When she told me to do this, I realized I don't even know how the healthy and deep and meaningful and loving relationships look like. And that's what I've noticed with many people. They struggle to create those kind of relationships because we just don't know how does it look like. How does it look like for us? How does it feel like for us? And when I started to write it down, I started to realize that my existing relationships are far away from what I really wanted, what I really desired. But I kept going, and I've created the list of my ideal partner, and I described literally how he looked like. I said that he's bald, he's a New Zealander, because I went to New Zealand just a few months ago, and I fall in love with those people. I also wrote that he has a healthy lifestyle. He's very fit. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't gamble, doesn't do drugs. He's very loyal. He's very honest. He's very charismatic. He has an amazing sense of humor. He hasn't been married or doesn't have kids. It was very important for me to start from the beginning. I described what kind of communications we have, what kind of intimate relationship we have. I described my relationship with his family and his relationships with my family. If you are looking for a new relationship, write the list of your ideal partner. Imagine that he or she is sitting next to you. How do they look like? How tall they are? How fit they are? What do you feel sitting next to them? What kind of communication do you have? What kind of intimate relationship you have? Do they love kids? Do they love animals? Do they love traveling? Everything that is very important for you, write it down. You can always change this list. It's most important is just to start. And what is very important in this exercise is to firstly, do not compromise with yourself, because I can see so many people do. I don't care really how he looks like, as long as he's kind and rich. And that's fine if you don't really care. I want you to write the list of those attributes that are very important for you. If you want to improve your existing relationships, then write down what kind of relationships you want to have with your partner. Do you want him to be more present, more loving, more kind? Do you want to spend more quality time together? And when I finished writing my list, something shifted at me. My whole energy changed. And I realized the biggest mistake that I was doing in my relationships. All my life, I was trying to do something to be likable by men, but I haven't done anything for myself to be likable by me. This huge realization came into my mind that women are trying to be likable by men instead of doing everything to be likable by ourselves, because that's where our energy comes from. That's where, when we are happy on the inside, we start creating our outside world with ease and joy. And that's when I realized that my relationship with myself directly linked with my relationships with my partner, with my colleagues, with my family. And what I did, I turned my attention, 100% of my attention, from the outside world to the inside world. I started to listen my heart more. What is that I want? What is that makes me happy? And so I went to the gym. I started to go for a walk. I started to meditate. I started to accepting myself more. I started to loving myself more. I would spend more time with my friends instead of just sitting at home and hiding. And what's happened? My energy and my vibrations have changed. And a week and a half later, when I was going for a coffee, a beautiful, good-looking, bald New Zealander stopped me on the street in the middle of the day. He looked right at my eyes and he said, "Excuse me, but you are stunning. And I wonder if you would like to have a drink with me one day." In this moment, the whole my being, the whole my body just responded to this person. I knew it was him. We've been together nearly 5 years, and he literally ticked every single box in my list of my ideal partner. And someone would say, Anna, you're probably lucky to meet this person. You're probably lucky he was walking on this street. When people saying lucky, for me, it means they just don't want to take responsibilities for their life. And not many people love it, because in this regards, they need to look deep down inside them and take full responsibilities for what's happening in their life, especially if there are any challenges in their relationships. And writing the list of your ideal person is not the end. There are a few main things that I started doing to really make this possible, to really create this miracle. The first thing, I started intentionally choosing my thoughts. I started intentionally look for the positive examples. And I started to plant the seeds for my future relationships. I asked myself, what do I want to feel being together with my partner? And for me, it was a feeling of enjoyment, fulfillment, happiness, calmness, security. And so I started to cultivate those kind of feelings within myself, because our subconscious does not understand whether those feelings are true or not. But when you start feeling them, your subconscious will bring the right people, the right time, the opportunities, the right places for these feelings to come true in the real life. Because again, your inner settings, your inner beliefs will determine what kind of relationship you will have with your partner in the future, or what kind of relationships you would have with your existing partner. And you are the only one person who literally can change those settings and those beliefs. The second thing what I did is I finally had a look at myself. I sat down and I wrote what kind of relationships I have with myself and towards myself. Because remember, your relationships with yourself directly linked to your relationship with your partner. The third thing, I was focusing on what I want instead of being realistic. Because some people would say, in my hometown, we don't have a normal man, or all normal men are married already. Or some people would say, I'm not young enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not beautiful enough. Again, I was choosing my thoughts that would serve me well intentionally. I was focusing on what I want instead of focusing on what I don't want. Remember, we create our own reality. And what is happening around you is just has been created with your old thinking, with your old mind. When you make a decision and when you focus on what you want, you will be surprised, but the right people, the right time, the right place, everything will start align in your life. Before I met my partner of my dreams, I was working in the office in a CBD in Melbourne, Australia. And every morning we would go for a coffee with my colleagues, 10 a.m. And that day, before we go for a coffee, my phone rang, and it was my client. And the conversation went for at least an hour. And so I told my colleagues, you don't wait for me, you go without, and I will just go and grab my coffee later on. After the conversation, I was actually thinking, maybe I should just keep working. Doesn't matter, forget about coffee. But something just lifted me up from my chair. Something just told me, yeah, have a coffee. And it was a purely my intuition. And I exited the building, and instead of going left to the coffee shop where we usually go, for some reason I turned right to go to another coffee shop. And as I turned right, that's where I met my husband. He was walking towards me. How to explain it? I don't know. But again, everything aligned in my life. Another thing what I would highly recommend you is Stop looking at the negative examples of your parents, of your uncles, aunties, brothers, sisters, where they had an unhealthy or unsuccessful marriage or relationships. Because one of the main things that I was doing is I was believing that this man exists. I knew I will have those kind of relationships. I knew it's coming. And this unquestionable knowledge is very important part in manifesting your healthy relationships, because once you start focusing on positive stories and start looking for them intentionally, you will see the evidence of these healthy and loving and deep and meaningful relationships more and more and more. Just remember, the journey towards your deep, meaningful, healthy, and loving relationships starts with yourself, because your relationship with your partner cannot be better than your relationship with yourself. That's all for today. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. What is preventing you from having those loving and healthy relationships? Or I would love to hear your story of success. What did you do to meet the partner of your dreams, or to improve your relationships with your existing partner? But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I would love to connect with you. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.